Welcome to Create Expectations, the show for average record collectors dig into their stash to share a pick based on the topic of the day. I'm Tom the Vibe Kennedy. I'm joined by Matt Collector Carvalho, Chris Sellout Palumbo, and Dan Papillon Lozier. And today, gentlemen, names. A great philosopher and thinker once said, Saturday night is all right for fighting. It's also all right for spinning records. Tonight, we're going to sit back in a comfy chair, pour a glass of something sweet, and spin some Saturday night vibes. Before we get into that, it's been a while since we've had a chat. How's everyone been? What have you been up to? Any records to share?
I just want to start off by saying that we're not all average record collectors, because Matt is definitely not an average record collector.
Very good point.
He's a cut above the rest, 100%. Also,
I don't know what that
Saturday night is all right for fighting. I will fight you guys on this hot take again if it's a good one. So
we'll see. It's up to the wheel.
Dan,
it's up to the wheel.
The wheel decides. Yeah. Dan, I know you've been on a bit of a jazz odyssey lately, and you sent us a couple of messages on the WhatsApp where you're talking about your addiction.
It's been insane. I mean, out of the blue, as soon as one of my friends heard I was doing a podcast about record collecting, this is a friend that I used to go record collecting back in high school, and he just said, "Hey, I want to come visit you in Toronto. I want to go check out some record stores." So it started off at I got to shout out Cops Records. I mean, I don't know. I'm probably not their best customer recently. I'm sure they have collectors who are way more into it than I am, but we went there. We went to 4 or 5 other stores that day. Ended up finding a lot of great records for my collection, and then I had to go check out all 3 other locations. And every time I seem to find more and more records for $5, $10, $15.
Oh,
and now all of a sudden my collection's just grown, and I must have bought 40 or 50 records just in the last 2 months, right? Like,
I love it.
That's
all
insane.
at amazing value. And I've found some amazing pieces. I found a personal holy grail for myself. I found a record that Alina was dying to have that was a little overpriced at the record store, but we ended up finding it for dirt cheap on Facebook Marketplace. So
that was Sam Cooke, right?
That was the Sam Cooke live at Harlem
Beautiful
Square
record.
Club.
So good.
Yep. Such a good record.
The voice.
Yeah.
So good.
Sam
It's
Cooke
so
is
fun.
amazing.
And so honestly, guys, like, I know I showcased it on social media for our live month, but that could have easily been a Saturday night record for us. Like,
at Create Expectations Pod on Instagram, hit us up.
Mm-hmm. If you want to see Dan's sexy record player.
But yeah, it's just, I got to thank you guys with the pod, right? Like I went years without collecting, and at some point my record player wasn't working. I had to get a new needle, and I just wasn't enthusiastic about it. And my receiver was all crackly, and got a new needle, went and got my receiver serviced. Now everything's in working order. So, I find myself working at home, and I'm just spinning records while I'm working, right? So I'll play 10, 12 records a day. Just vinyl while I'm working. Mostly jazz stuff. So it's been great to grow that part of my collection.
Are you still running the one in, one out rule that your spouse has you on?
No, I mean, so I gave about, I think, 25 or 30 records to a friend. I saw that he had a record player at his cottage and he had nothing. So shout out to Frankie. I know Frankie likes to listen.
Nice.
Thanks for listening. But so I went and handed him a bunch of stuff, a bunch of, kind of my bottom tier records. But there was some good stuff in there too that he was pretty excited to get. Wasn't super stoked on the Kim Mitchell stuff, but
what? Why not? Man, Kim Mitchell and the cottage go hand in hand.
That's what I thought. I thought he'd be stoked to get those, and they were mint.
Mint? Never been played.
Never been played.
Yo, I bet there was a Cambridge Fall Fair pressing in there, live at the Cambridge Fall Fair.
But basically, the one in, one out. That rule's not gonna. It's no longer in play. I mean, I got rid of enough. Whereas, like, I don't know if I can get rid of anything else. So Alina and I had a conversation. And I basically just told Elena, I was like, hey, this is my hobby, so we're gonna have to find a place for them.
It's a nice guideline.
I'm at the point where I've found a lot of, great records that I wanted in my collection. So I'm not coming home with dozens of records anymore. I'm very selective as to what I want right now. But at least I don't. There's no more cap on the collection.
The next step is when you start redesigning your living space to accommodate your record collection.
That's the next step. We gotta find a nice piece of furniture for the record player and the receiver, and then all the records, just to give us a nice little display.
Yeah, build one.
It'll come.
Nice.
Yeah.
And Matt, I know you picked up George Harrison box set, All Things Must Pass, recently. Give us the scoop. Is it worth getting, or should you still chase an OG?
I think it's worth getting. The new mix is nice. It's nice getting all the bonus material with the outtakes and studio session stuff. If you're really into demos and like outtakes and stuff like that, or just a big Beatles and George Harrison fan in general, where you'll shell out the extra money for that, it's definitely worth it. I would say go for it. But if you just want like the album in its entirety, go chase an OG. The only problem is it's pretty close to what that box set is worth now.
Yeah.
I think they go for about 110, 120, and that's just for, the album in itself. Like, it's almost worth buying the new pressing of it, to be honest with you.
Do they have the original mastering and the re-engineered one, or is it just the re-engineered one?
So the one that I've got, it's just the new pressing. It's just that new mix. I know there's another edition that came out. It's an 8 LP set. I think that one has both. The one I have is 5, and I think it's just the new mix plus the studio sessions and outtakes.
Because they pulled the Phil Spector back on the reissue, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Interesting.
But yeah, it's been a good little bit of collecting over the summer. It's been actually it was funny. I was taking a tally of what I collected recently, and Dan, I gotta say, you were a good inspiration to keep me going over the summer. Seeing you just picking up records left and right, I was like, I love this. It made me so happy, honestly, because it was nice to see you get back into it like full on. It was fantastic. When I was tracking how many records I bought over the summer, I think I came in just under 80 pieces. 80 records.
Unreal.
Just ridiculous.
For
the rest of the year, I had a bunch of stuff on pre-order, and I was like, okay, you know what? I got to trim it back a bit, and I think I have the rest of the year, maybe 6 titles coming.
Are you Are you a member of Vinyl Me Please or any of those sort of subscriptions?
No, you know what? I was considering it at one point, but didn't jump on it. They have a lot of nice pressings though, and I know a lot of them are exclusive just to Vinyl Me Please.
They just advertised their Christmas releases, and they've done the Vince Guaraldi. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Vince Guaraldi trio. Their Charlie Brown's Christmas. Have you guys seen that album?
Yeah. It's actually decent.
It's so good.
Yeah.
I love it. They're that's one of their releases. It's a member exclusive. I don't like enough of what they have to sign up though.
That's my biggest thing. Is I want to make sure whatever I'm getting, I'm going to like it.
Yeah, because you get what is it, 4 albums a month or something?
Something like that, yeah.
It is a cool idea though.
Yeah. I don't know if any of you guys saw it. Nevermind's being pressed for its 30-year anniversary.
I'm going to buy that.
If anyone's interested in that.
I'm going to get that.
Yeah. Because it comes with the... Sorry, go ahead, Tom.
I'm not getting an OG.
Yeah, the OG is hard to find and it's expensive now.
Super expensive.
But the new pressing, I think it's going for $33 and change right now, and it comes with a 7-inch single as well.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That'll be $70 in Australia.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
The George Harrison box set, the one you have, is $150.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I think I paid $111 tax in.
Yeah, they're just more expensive here.
Okay.
I haven't been buying a lot of records lately, but I did, and this is a little bit of a teaser. for a future episode, so make sure you tune back in. I did pick up what I would consider now to be the holy grail in my collection, and it's quite a funny story about like how I finally convinced myself to buy it. So I'll save that for a later episode.
It's a nice tease.
But I did grab this week. I sent you guys a photo of the Buena Vista Social Club, which I've been looking for ages. Is that album of Cuban musicians produced by Ry Cooder. If you haven't listened to it, it's available on streaming platforms. It is phenomenal. Incredible musicians, traditional Cuban music. It's so fun, and it was a reissue, so it's a 2 LP, 180 gram records, and it came with a 12-page booklet with the story of how it all came about.
Oh, that's cool.
It's a really nice record. I'm so happy.
Those extra pieces like that are a nice touch.
Yeah, I might do a reel.
The books.
The kids are doing reels now on the Instagram. I might do a reel showcasing the record.
Oh.
Yeah, go for it.
Fancy. Yeah, fancy.
Now,
and
Chris,
Tom, I heard you're chasing another one. Wait, I heard we're trying to convince you to pull the trigger on another one here. Are you going to do it?
Yeah, so for our listeners, I've been talking about tracking down all of the Albert label pressings of AC/DC albums, and one that has eluded me for some time is Let There Be Rock. A piece has become available on Facebook Marketplace, and the guy lives in the same suburb as me. It's like...
Oh.
Which is amazing.
It's like it's meant to be. I think I'm comfortable with what he's asking for it, but I want to see it in person before I pull the trigger.
Right.
But I'm slowly... I think I have like 13 AC/DC albums on
nice.
On vinyl. So we're amassing quite the collection. It helps that Alicia likes them too.
Yeah. Hey, that's a big one.
So I can spin it with impunity at any time.
There you go.
Now,
all right, we'll find out. Tune in next episode. You'll have to
exactly.
Update us on that one too. All right.
Now, Chris, got a bit of a bone to pick with you.
What did I do?
Since our last recording.
Chris, what did you do? I mean, you're always doing something crazy.
It's more like, what didn't you do?
Yeah.
What did you do? Yeah.
So since we last spoke, you know, things are opening back up. COVID is receding. We're starting to get our lives back.
We're all double
and one
vaxxed.
Christopher Palumbo got tickets to see Sam Roberts band, and I don't know if you've heard, but he's quite a big fan. I think they may have a restraining order against him.
Yeah, I think that was in an episode. Yeah.
But you know, we've talked about before. You've got your bun chewed Chemical City, and you hit us up and you said your phone was broken. Could someone contact Sam Roberts band? Let them know I'm going to the gig. I'm going to take the Bun Chemical City, one of a kind, and I'm going to get them to sign it.
And we talked about this in the first episode where we said need to get that record signed.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
It was almost like it was set in motion already.
It was already there.
Great idea. So
executed to a T.
And he asked us, "Hey, can you message Instagram?"
Right? So of course,
see if they can get it signed.
Of course. And we've interacted with Sam Roberts Band Instagram account a few times.
Shout out to Sam Roberts. You guys are on top of it when it comes to your social media.
Yeah, whoever's running their socials is doing a great job. And so we sent him a message. Hey, our buddy's going to the show. Would you sign a record for him if he takes it? Yeah, no worries. They got back to us. They said, "Yep, they would do it
quickly."
They also said which seat.
Yeah.
Like which section are they sitting in?
Yada yada.
Okay.
So we told
two things.
So hang on, Chris. Hey. You don't get to cross-examine yet. So we tell Chris, hey, that's amazing. They got back to us. And I think I saw the message and I sent it on the WhatsApp and there was no response. And then I tried to call you and there was no response. And I sent the screenshot. I was like, someone Someone speak to Chris. Someone speak to Lee. Get a hold of them. Like,
Yeah,
this
I
is
think,
going
I
to
think
happen.
We were all going
messaged
insane.
Lee.
The wheels are in
We all
motion.
messaged Lee, like, Lee, get Chris on the phone now.
Like, I remember I tried calling you, Chris. I tried calling Lee. I messaged you both. Like, this had to be done.
And Chris, do you want to take it from there?
So there was just like a series of unfortunate events.
So I
Starting
just,
with
just,
a-
I just want
Always
to
a
just
series of
always a
unfortunate
se-
events.
before the excuses, just a yes or no. Did you take the record to get signed by Sam Roberts' band?
No.
Why?
That's it.
Like,
All
I,
right.
I just don't understand why.
I don't get it.
Okay.
It's the
So-
best.
So in my defense,
Hey guys, can you do all this work for me? So
No.
I will
No.
not do what I need to do on my end
no.
to get it done.
So
My heart
Okay.
sank when you said,
Yeah.
I didn't take the record."
well, I didn't think it was gonna happen. Like,
I even
Okay.
offered to go drive back to your house to grab that.
Yes,
record.
you did, and then we looked at traffic.
Don't worry about it.
no, it was gonna be 3 hours in traffic.
So the floor's
Okay.
yours, Chris. Please share with us why this didn't happen.
The first thing was an unfortunate event involving a alcoholic beverage and my cell phone, and so that took my cell phone out of the equation. So I'm cell phoneless, using an old phone with no data. It didn't have data on
burner?
it, so it wasn't. It was if anyone remembers the old Essential phones, and the way this beautiful brick works is when you turn it on, because the battery is so old, it's a probably 7-year-old phone. You got 20 minutes, so it's an emergency phone only. So like
This was an emergency.
yeah, I know. And when I turned it on, it was flooded with a bunch of messages. And then Lee looked at her phone. The second thing was we had to get a babysitter because my kid was only 7 months old, so it was the first time leaving the kid, and we were just so excited. And maybe a couple of alcoholic beverages were involved that it wasn't until I was on the train where me and Lee were talking, and she's like, "Do you think they're actually like? Is anyone going to answer about the record?" And I'm like, "No, he's about to go on stage. They're practicing. They're not even going to answer us. I'm not worried about the record." We walked in the gates and they upgraded our tickets right away. So we weren't even in like our original seats. So we got moved
Jesus
closer
Christ.
up already.
Oh,
so,
man.
So
They
like
moved
a bunch
you
of
there so they could sign the record.
yeah, maybe, right? And then so we're there, we're enjoying Chaos, who actually put on a really good show. And then all of a sudden Lee like pulls out her phone to take a picture, and like all of you had called her. There was video calls, and she's like, Matt had called her like 10 times or something, and she's like, "Why is Carvello, like, what the hell's going on?" And she's like, "You better look in the text messages." And she's like, "Turn your phone on." So I turned my phone on, and it just like flooded with these, and I was like, "Oh, damn it." So I used her phone to get on the account. I sent my seat number, and no one showed up anyway. But like,
Chris,
I was wearing
Chris.
a 2002 Sam Roberts shirt. I did get in contact with their social media person. I can't remember her name off the top of my head. I think it's Sarah.
I think it's Sarah.
Yeah, Sarah. And I was like, "Hey, it didn't work out this time." And she said, "No worries. We'll try again. Or you can mail it to them and they'll sign it." But I was like, "That's not cool." I was like, "No, Sarah, next time there's a show, we're getting this thing signed because I want a picture with the band."
Yeah.
Because it was a huge fiasco between that and some anti-maskers and, a bunch of other interesting
Chris-
things that happen at
Chris-
concerts nowadays.
Chris, I see a recurring pattern with you and phones.
Yes.
I don't know how many phones you've had in your life. You got to put that shit on lockdown. Like,
Yeah,
you
it
just
wasn't-
you gotta learn how to take care of your phones, man.
I'm blaming Leon. It was Lee's fault on this one.
Don't blame
Is it
me.
any
Don't.
different than taking care of the
That's
records?
the
It's always
fuck.
Yeah,
someone
is
else.
it any different?
John's
Oh,
fault
okay,
the
okay,
records
you know
is
what?
scratched.
Yeah,
Bun
yeah,
Bun's
yeah.
fault.
Doesn't take
Chemical
care of his
City's
records.
damaged.
It doesn't
take care
Bun
of
Bun's
his
fault.
phones.
My taste in music is John Palumbo's fault, right? I always blame someone else.
I would go. I'm not prone to hyperbole, but I would go as far to say that it was a debacle.
It was a debacle.
Absolute debacle.
It actually
Yeah.
ruined the it ruined the show a little bit. I was when I finally got onto the chat, and I was like, and I even sent it to you guys. I'm like, I messed up. It's like ruining my moment. And Lee like pulled me aside and she's like, nope.
Hey,
Do you know what? If it's meant to be, it wasn't meant to be. This is a hilarious story, and
It's
Yeah,
hilarious.
that's true.
Just go with it. And I was like, yep, you're right. Yeah.
Chris, you know what though? The first step is saying you have a problem. You did that. You just did it. So
You got a
you're
problem.
turning over a new leaf.
Oh, there we go.
It's
Next
gonna
time you're going to this Sam Roberts
Thanks, Bun
concert,
Bun.
you're getting that thing signed.
it's gonna
See,
be
Bun
quite-
Bun's still helping me out.
It's gonna be emotional when it finally
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
it's
think
gonna
so.
be amazing. That's going
it's
to be a
gonna-
whole bonus episode in itself.
Yeah.
You should
Right.
actually get Sam Roberts to do like you're listening. You know how they used to do on MTV? Like you're watching MTV. This is Dave Grohl. You're watching MTV.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Sam Roberts. You're listening to Great Expectations pod.
Oh, yes.
If I actually get to meet him, I'll ask him. I'll record something. I'll be like, even if he's just asking what the hell happened to the record.
A photo of him with the signed Bun Bun record
Would be amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and me,
Guys,
me
don't
in the
worry.
background.
Guys, don't worry.
Me not there.
Chris will forget to ask him, so.
Oh, I probably will. Yeah, no, I won't have a phone. It'll have
You
to.
won't have a phone to record it, exactly.
I'll have to use my BlackBerry.
Oh man, what a journey!
Good times.
So, today we are here to talk about Saturday night spins. And this could take any form. I'm excited to see where this goes. I think it's going to be pretty eclectic. Jam on, slapping the bass. Chris.
I'm just vibing. I'm feeling
bass,
the
Mom.
Saturday.
So I might kick things off because I normally have to just get sandwiched somewhere in the middle. But yeah, why not? I'm going to go first.
Let's go.
So this is my Saturday night spin. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm running an absolute classic. I've been spinning it a lot in the lead up to this episode too. So my offering today is Rolling Stones Exile on Main Street. Comfortably
Classic.
my favorite Stones album.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Interesting. I like it.
That's a hot take.
That is a hot take.
I adore this album. I can't get enough of it. I listened to it again this morning and I was just like, I just have this shit-eating grin on my face whenever I listen to this album. So, a little background on this, you may or may not know. 10th studio album, released in 1972, was recorded in exile. They were tax evaders. Taxman was chasing them in England, so they escaped to the south of France. I believe Keith had a villa in the south of France, and they shacked up there and they recorded this album. And the idea behind the title was that they were sort of these exiles using blues as a weapon. And I think what I like most about this is it's really an exploration of all of the genres that they started out in, right? Like they started as wanting to really showcase American roots, and this is roots, rock and roll, blues, folk. It's quite an eclectic album, really, and it doesn't have any like of their major hits on it. But it stood the test of time. As I think it was actually panned when it first came out. Like I don't think it was particularly well received, but it just grew. Its reputation grew, and I would say it's my favorite Stones album. And I bought this copy from my favorite record store in Sydney, the Vintage Record. And the owner, this is a Monarch pressing, which was I don't think it exists anymore. It was a pressing plant in the US that was renowned for really impeccable pressings. And the sound quality on this is fantastic. And Phil from Vintage Record, he goes to the States once a year. I'm guessing he hasn't been in the last couple, but and he just fills a shipping container with records and brings them back to his store. And he cleans in an ultrasonic cleaner every single record that goes on the shelf and puts them in new sleeves. So he really cares about the products that he's putting out there. Another fun little piece, I don't know if you guys know the title is actually Jagger's handwriting.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
Cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so he just
Didn't know that at
scrolled
all.
Rolling Stones Exile on Main Street. So, I think I could listen to this on repeat, this album. But in terms of the tracks, I would say Tumbling Dice is probably the most popular track from this album. If any, that would be the one that would be considered one of their hits. But even then, I don't think it would be. And then my favourite, which is a bit left field, is Ventilator Blues. I just love the sort of
that's a great
chunky
tune.
slide on it.
Yeah. I honestly, I love Keith's guitar playing on that song. And honestly, on the whole album itself, I just think it's like you said, it's such a different vibe than a lot of their earlier albums. And I just love kind of where Keith goes with his guitar playing on that.
Yeah, it's said that it's really Keith's. It's considered Keith's album more than Mick's, and I know Mick and Keith are writing partners, but this was an album that he sort of took charge on. Keith took a bit of a back seat, and you can kind of tell that. I don't know. Apparently, the band was in a pretty rough place. Like, it took them. I think they started writing this in 1969, and it wasn't released till 72. They were in a really rough place in terms of drug addiction and alcoholism, and it's a really gritty album. It's kind of sleazy and dirty. You kind of get that struggle through the music. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I feel like, for how eclectic it is, but also, you know, it has some really strong vibes in it. I just feel like it's a really good Saturday night spin. And it's Saturday here, so I might give it a spin tonight. And I obviously wanted to... I felt like it was a good time to showcase some Stones with the recent passing of Charlie Watts. You know, that was... not unexpected, because, you know, all of these classic bands, you know, these legacy bands are getting on, but it still sort of rattles you when someone that you've adored, you know, shuffles off this mortal coil. So, yeah, this one's for Charlie. A really cool thing I read about Charlie, and then this will be my last thing I'll say about this, is... he brought the roll. So the Rolling Stones are rock and roll, and he brought the roll. Without it, it's just rock. But with Charlie's swing, right, he was a jazz musician. With that, you know, the swing that he brought to the band, that's what gives them the rock and roll. And so...
I like that.
Yeah. So that's me, Rolling Stones, Exile on Main Street.
Nice, I love it. You make a good point with what you kind of touched on, like the band's feeling in a certain place with their drug addiction and everything going on amongst themselves. I find, after listening to this album, I was listening to it today actually, I do find it's a lot looser than most of their albums. The production isn't that kind of bright and massaged as it normally is. And it's kind of loose, if you know what I mean. Like, the playing isn't all that tight. You could almost say it's a little sloppy, but it almost doesn't matter, because you get a good groove and a good vibe, like you were saying, from this record. Like, me personally, two of my favorite Stone songs are on this album, Rocks Off and Sweet Virginia. They're great records. You know what I mean? I love those songs.
Rocks Off,
so
really,
you know
kicks
what?
it into, like, that's the first track, right? And you're just like...
Yeah, it gets it going, and you dive right in from there. It's amazing.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that. It kind of feels like a jam, you know? Like, it's a bit loose.
Yeah, it really does.
It reminds me a bit of the Basement Tapes.
Mm-hmm.
So going with what Matt said here, Sweet Virginia, that's the only song I recognized off this album. So I'm not a huge, I've said it before, I'm not a huge Rolling Stones fan to you guys. And I put this on a couple times. And I put it on this morning again in the shower. And I forgot Sweet Virginia was on there, but it was like new song, not new song, but song I didn't recognize. And I made a point. I was like, I like the Stones, but I'm not a huge fan of the Stones hits, or maybe I've just heard them too much. And it was just like a refresher to, there's so much in their catalog. Like dive beyond it, which again is why Spotify's kind of so significant. And then like Sweet Virginia came on and I was like, oh, like this is easily my top, like in my top 2 Stones or top 5, I would say. Stone songs. Like
I wish I heard it more on popular radio.
Right? Like and when that song comes on, you can't just you belt it out. Like it's such a good song.
Totally.
And I think it fits in with the album so well. And sadly, I didn't know it was on this album. And you guys have told me, like, if you want to get into the Stones, start here. And I've slowly been doing that. I've noticed in the shower a couple times this week, like this album has gone on, and it's been like, okay, like this is it. This is how you get into the Rolling Stones.
It's a good introduction.
Yeah, well, Chris, like if like you know you're not really into Rolling Stones, but to me, like you really want to get into the ones that Jimmy Miller produced. It's like Let It Bleed, Beggar's Banquet,
So good.
I think Sticky Fingers.
Yeah, I like Sticky Fingers.
And then Exile on Main Street. And there's another one, I don't remember which one he did, but you know, to me it's like those are right there, those are like their best albums, right? Yeah. And that's where to start, and I think Jimmy Miller plays a big part in
how about this?
In the vibes of those.
Those 4 albums were released over the space of 4 years.
That's
68 to 72.
That's insane.
Wow.
Yeah.
Absolutely insane.
Yeah, 72 was a killer year for music. We may have to do just a podcast on 72.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, killer.
You know, I think the last thing that I want to touch on this album is just like that grassroots blues stuff. Like one of the songs I love the most on there is Stop Breaking Down, which it's a Robert Johnson song.
Yeah.
Right. So like Robert Johnson, you know, the originator of the 12-bar blues. And, you know, I know he's a big influence to Keith. And I actually didn't know that Keith played the heaviest hand in producing and sort of writing the whole album. But just knowing that, and then to see that he put a Robert Johnson song on there, which I'm sure he probably knew how to play that even before he was part of the Stones, right? Like,
yeah.
And then to hear the vibe, to have like this really gritty blues sound, a lot more blues rock than some of their earlier albums, which was a lot more rock and roll. Yeah, I think that's cool. I think it's cool to see, and that's one of my favorite songs on the album there.
And that's how Keith and Mick got hooked up, right? Like one of them noticed on the train that the other one was holding a blues record. They were both fans of the blues.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. That's cool.
That's cool.
Nice. I'm actually excited to listen to it again this evening, even though I listened to it this morning. That's how much I love this album.
Yeah, Saturday, man. Freaking
Saturday.
Cool,
Saturday.
great pick, man.
Yep.
Thanks,
I love
man.
it.
Yeah, I could definitely play that on a Saturday night.
Mm-hmm.
So, Mr. Palumbo, what do you got for us?
All right. I'm going with a year younger, but a totally different genre of music. Well, I guess maybe not actually. Maybe not too different. This album fell into my lap completely accidentally because Lee and I were making dinner, and Matt Mays put out a live album, and in one of the songs he sings "Keep On Keepin' On," and I was like, "There's no way." In the history of music, he came up with that lyric. And I was like, okay. So I put Keep On Keepin' On, and this artist came on, and we listened to the song. And I was like, I've never heard that song before. I've never heard of this artist, Curtis Mayfield. I was like, who is this? And it was a Saturday night, and we went through his entire discography, and we ended up landing on this album called Roots. Holy hell. Is it a fun album?
It's a great record.
Yeah, so, and I can't remember what my original pick was, but instantly, the second I heard this album, I was like, I'm switching. This is my new Saturday night. You want to put an album on where you can jam while making dinner, but then after dinner have a couple drinks and a quick dance party in the living room. This is it.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
And it just happened the next day. We went out, and it was Sunday in the summer, and we walk into the record store, and it's just sitting right at the front.
It was meant to
Like
be.
Oh,
it
it's
was meant to be
Kismet,
this reissue. Just and he at the record store I go to, Looney Tunes at the front of the store, he has like new arrivals, and it was just like first sitting there, and it's got this kind of like orangey, that cheesy 70s orangey yellow lettering.
Yep.
And it just like, I looked at Lee and I was like, we can't not buy this. Right? Like we just literally listened to this album like 6 times last night. So we picked it up, and yeah, his soul, his like funk, it's next level. Something that I never was really into, kind of jumped out. I could hear like his influence from other bands from like the 60s, and like I could also hear like his guitar playing and like that psychedelic era kind of influence in his stuff as well. So I thought it was really cool. This week I actually read a review on Rolling Stone from 1971 when the album came out, and it didn't actually have great reviews, which I was kind of shocked with.
Really?
And I was like,
That's like it's considered his best album.
yeah, it is. So yeah, I looked it up the other day, and they said it was like kind of like what was the word? Unconceiving and a little bit silly, I think was
What?
the yeah.
What?
How
Yeah, it was like
pretentious.
it was kind of like he's trying to be like this soul artist, but he's like missing the mark, and he's being like,
Wow.
I can't remember. And they were criticizing like the religious undertones in some of the stuff, and I was like, no, like I felt like you interpret this album the way you want to interpret it. If you're thinking it's about religion, sure, it can be about religion. But a couple of songs, I was like, no, I'm picturing that more of like the interconnectedness of humanity, right? I think it still works well in that kind of sense. Because yeah, we got to have peace. Like I didn't really feel it's like, I guess you could interpret it as religion, but it was more like something I interpreted as like the well-being of all.
You know what though? A lot of black artists back then, when they started going out of the mold of what I guess the white population kind of wanted them to fit into, like, oh, you need to be a gospel singer, you need to be, because especially at the time, it was just kind of right after the civil rights movement, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it would, segregation was just starting to disappear, and black people still needed to sort of fit a mold if they wanted to fit into society. That was kind of like the compromise that white people were willing to deal with. And I know that a lot of the people black people who were into soul and the black artists from that movement and Motown, they got a ton of criticism because they were coming out with new sounds. And so I would say, like, you know what, whoever wrote that review, I would almost bet my money that there's perhaps some of that's like old stock and that prejudice, because it's like,
right.
oh, you're not fitting into that mold of what you're supposed to be.
Yeah, because I didn't feel
really
that at
sad.
all. Yeah, because the last line, I just pulled it up while you were talking, Lozier, and it says, like, when Curtis occasionally gets his thing together, it's really beautiful. But in the end, he winds up leaving you frustrated and hungry, which is like the opposite of what I thought this album was like.
I would disagree with that.
Complete, right?
That's really interesting.
Right? And so this is why I don't like to bring up reviews a lot, and rarely do I actually read reviews and take them to heart anyway. But this one stood out to me because it was the exact opposite feeling. I felt when I put this album on, I felt like energized and like full of life, which is why I picked it as like a Saturday night album.
Yeah.
It was just, it's nonstop fun after don't get me wrong. There's some heavy topics in here.
Yeah.
But it's like,
But that's a thing, right? He talked a lot about blaxploitation. He talked about the civil rights movement in his music, and that probably pissed off a lot of white people.
yeah, it's powerful. And you know what? And for that, like, that's that's the Saturday. That's the Saturday choice. Like, there's nothing else I'm playing on a Saturday.
Love
now
it.
to get fired up from this. Yeah,
It's a great album.
Yeah,
Take it away,
you
Matt.
got it there. Like, even the way that album starts with Get Down, that fuzzy bass that comes in, oh, I love that. Gets me going right away.
Yeah.
And like, man, my favorite record on this one might be Beautiful Brother of Mine. It's a great tune. So good.
yeah. Oh yeah, the start off side 2.
Yeah.
No, and I also love that it's a long song. A big
Yeah,
fan. That
isn't
some
it
of
close
these
to
are
like 7 minutes?
Yeah, it's 7:23.
There you go.
Yeah, big fan of these long funk, like soul R&B songs that are just keep it going.
I feel like he's got quite a big discography. I would think 3 or 4 of his records would almost be essentials, right? Like Roots,
100%.
Oh, yeah.
Curtis, Superfly.
Yeah.
There's No Place Like America Today.
Yeah.
And, you know, really significant post-civil rights movement.
I mean, to me, those are some of the most significant, American pieces of music, right? Like the civil rights movement. I used to play his music at the rallies. Like he's so influential in that movement.
Okay, which was so crazy that this was like a part of my musical like journey that I'd never even experienced.
It was a gap. Yeah.
It was a giant gap in my music that I just like I didn't know was missing until I discovered this. So I'm really happy I did. And yeah, even since then, my dad, John Palumbo, he actually picked up another Curtis Mayfield album the other day, and we came over and made some food, and he brought it over, and I was like,
that's so
yeah,
cool.
like
Awesome.
keep this coming. Anything Curtis Mayfield now, I'm picking up.
Yeah.
Like,
Love it.
yeah,
Love
he
it.
became one of those ones that I'm like, I kind of want his full discography now.
Yeah.
Like it's good stuff.
That's awesome, man. That's a really good pick too.
That's a great.
You just
pick.
feel like that's giving you an uplifting experience on a Saturday night.
I think it will, if you need an uplifting experience, if you're having, I don't know, you had a bad week or you're having a great week, put it on. Put on Roots. It makes you feel. And I think that's something that's real important.
I think the one thing that is very underrated about him is his guitar playing. I mean,
Agreed.
most people will just think of him as a soulful singer, but I mean, man, some of those licks on that
They stand
album,
out.
they stand out, and it's. I mean, imagine 1971 listening to this music and being like, "What is this? Like, this is so new, right?" And like, it's funky, it's full of soul. There's a little jazz in there, like it's rock and roll.
It's
Yeah,
it's got everything.
So underrated, his guitar playing.
It's even psychedelic. Some of the stuff like in Underground.
His guitar tone too kind of stands out.
Yeah, and like the fuzzy bass, right? Like
I love that.
There's a lot of funk psychedelic vibes there.
Yeah.
Do you know, the other day, you guys follow Dylan, Noble Records, awesome Instagram account. I would love to go to his record store. He's been posting some absolute fire lately. But he did this video the other day where it was like music trivia. It was with his wife, and she had these trivia cards, and she was asking different questions. And one of the things that came up, I had no idea. I had to read about it afterwards. Curtis Mayfield was actually paralysed late in life. Some staging, like some scaffolding or something, fell on him at a show, and he was paralysed. And which is, obviously incredibly sad. But what is pretty remarkable and kind of inspiring is he actually still released music afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Oh, that's cool.
Up until he passed away. I'm not sure exactly when, but yeah, I had no idea. I'd never heard that
in
before.
the 90s.
Yeah,
Oh,
I think he was 56 when he passed away.
that's tragic.
Oh, that is tragic. That's young.
Yeah. And it's from, I think it was complications with diabetes as well.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I'd never heard that. It seems like something you would be aware of. But clearly he didn't let it define him, and he he went on to release more music. So it's pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
one of the best.
Matt, I feel like. Thank you, Chris. Oh, before we go, Chris, give us your tracks.
I don't. Did you give us yours? I don't think you did. We'll have to.
I did. Tumbling Dice and Ventilator
yes.
Blues.
Oh, that's right. Yep. Well, I have to go with Underground. That song, just the way they whisper in that song, and I put it on in the car, and you just it makes you feel things. Love it. And then I'm gonna do Keep On Keeping On, because that's the song that made me get into Curtis Mayfield. So those are my two choices. If I could, I'd add actually the whole of side one in there, because
so
Get
good.
Down is awesome, and We Gotta Have Peace is We Gotta Have Peace is a killer track.
Mm-hmm.
That repeat back on that song is near perfect.
Very nice. And Matt, I feel like you're gonna bring some hate with this next selection.
All right.
I'm excited.
So everyone knows I love my hip hop. This was a big album when it came out. Kanye West, Graduation.
Oh yeah,
Huge.
This is
Good
an
morning.
album I've played many a times on a Saturday night. It's nothing but bangers. Even the more, slower, stripped down, slower songs on the album, whatever you want to call it, they're bangers. They're absolutely incredible. Some great production on this. He handles the majority of the production, but you got Timbaland, who kind of does, I'm not going to say ghost production, but he helped with the drums and a little bit of the production on Stronger. You got DJ Tomp. DJ Premier does some of the scratching on Everything I Am.
amazing.
Just, I'm sure I'm missing a person or two, and I apologize, but just absolute bangers for production on this record. This, to me, I think would be, in my personal opinion, his second best record he's ever put out. Something I love about Kanye is he kind of reinvents himself every album. This was no exception. You start off with Good Morning. Even some of the sample choices on this record are amazing. Like on Good Morning, he samples Elton John and Jay-Z, which a lot of people probably don't know that, but it's kind of just a fun fact. Anyways, great samples on this record. He samples Mountain. Who else does he sample on this one? There's a number of them. If you go to Wikipedia and check all the credits there, there's a lot of good samples on this record. And just the content and the whole vibe and feel of this record from start to finish is just fantastic. Like, you got your club bangers with Stronger and Good Life, but again, you go back to Good Morning, which is just a good vibe all around, a great intro to the record. Champion, one of the most overlooked Kanye songs, I think, in his entire discography is The Glory. That, again, my personal opinion. I love that song, the production, the lyrics, wordplay, flow, everything on that record is great. You got a Chris Martin feature in Homecoming, which is nice. It's just a fantastic record start to finish. Barry Bonds with Lil Wayne, they go back and forth, just exchanging bars, which, Chris, I know you're not a fan of that song, but I love that song. It's got a lot of good lyrics on that. It just goes back and forth.
It's my favorite song.
It's a great record. It's Chris, I don't know what your beef is with that song, but it's so good.
I can't. Okay, I said this to Matt earlier, not to hijack the conversation, but that album's my favorite Kanye album by far, and that song, I just feel that song in Drunken Hot Girls just doesn't fit.
That's my only. Yeah. I don't like that song on the record. That's the only one.
Yeah, I agree.
And for some reason, and I don't know why, those two songs, to me, I can't separate them. So I don't know if that's a me problem, but whenever I picture that album, I'm skipping both those songs. If those two songs weren't on there, in my mind, that would be the perfect album. Matt, it's an amazing choice. I love it. Big fan.
Yeah, it's a great one. And I feel like there's a point I wanted to touch on with that too. Sorry, give me 1 second. Lights flashing. Or flashing lights, sorry. Another great record. Another banger. You know, I'm sorry I forgot that to begin with, but yeah, just another great record.
I honestly found it interesting. I was going to talk about Flashing Lights, but I just found it interesting as you were listing off all the songs, how many big singles were off of that album.
Yeah.
Huge.
Massive.
And then as you were listening, I was like, oh man, he's listing all these songs, but like Barry Bonds is my favorite. Flashing Lights is one of my favorite songs on that.
Yeah.
You know, and like every single song you can talk about how big it is.
Yeah.
It's
Well, it's
such
funny
a big
too.
album.
I don't know if you guys remember back when this album was being released, but he had a big thing going on with 50 Cent at the time because they were both dropping the same week, and they were putting up some money, and 50 was talking about, oh, I'm gonna blow Kanye out of the water with my numbers. It's gonna be ridiculous, and Kanye smoked him. I don't even think it was a contest. I think Kanye sold like 890,000, and 50 sold like around 700 or 600,000, something like that.
That's so interesting that you brought that up, Matt, because this album, first of all, agree with everything you said. I think the sampling on this album is incredible. There's some brilliant collaborations. I find this to be a really bright album, a really bright listening experience. And yeah, interesting that you say that about that beef between Kanye and 50 Cent, because this album really changed what people wanted to listen to in terms of hip hop. This sort of heralded the end of sort of gangster rap's popularity, right? Opened the genre up to different styles of hip hop.
Agreed.
So, you know, it's a really significant album, and you know, as you're saying, like some of the tracks on it, like, man, you'd be happy to have one of those on an album.
Yeah, no kidding. And sorry, I got to go back just 1 second here. Some of the samples, sorry, I forgot probably the biggest sample off this record because it was a massive hit.
Daft Punk.
Daft Punk for Stronger.
That's a beast of a track.
Yeah, a Michael Jackson sample on Good Life. Like, there are some big samples he used and used them so creatively throughout this record. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's a really good album.
And big names, like you named a couple, but then I was just quickly looking through here. T-Pain, Mos Def is featured on Drunken Hot Girls. See, I'm a big, like, I shouldn't say big, but I liked Mos Def, and yeah, couldn't get into it. Like, Homecoming, like, that was my morning song in university.
What a good tune.
Like, I used to put that on, I would start with Good Morning, because, like, I remember I'd get in the shower from, like, my 8:30 music class or whatever for teachers college, and I remember I put on Good Morning and then Homecoming, and like, Tom, it's funny how you said it's a bright album. Like, it was like I put it on no matter what mood I was in, how hungover I was from the rodeo. Right, we were like, I was vibing to these songs.
You can't help but smile when you listen to that first track.
It really is kind of a feel good album.
Yeah, and this was my gateway into kind of modern day hip hop, if you will, because before, gangster rap was something I could never connect with or feel with, where this album really brought me into this like new genre of kind of hip hop and rap. Yeah, and it's something that I really do, and yeah, I would say it's on easily my top 10 favorite albums of all time, easily. So Matt, killer pick. Absolutely. And I wish I had it on vinyl, because I don't.
So this is a little bit of a sidetrack, but we love getting sidetracked, so I don't feel too bad. As you were saying, there's a Chris Martin collaboration on this, and I thought I'd do a little shout out to my wife Alicia's dad, Steve, who is an avid listener of the pod.
Big fan, I heard. Yeah.
And he actually sent through that new Coldplay track. I can't pronounce the name of it, but it's he sent it through. Thought that we would like it, and it's like a 10 minute epic track. And I said to you guys, this is so weird to say out loud, but it reminded me of Pink Floyd, and I never thought I would say that about Coldplay. But if you haven't, If you haven't
haven't.
listened to it yet, listen to the new
I can't wait
Coldplay.
to check that out.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
listen
check it
to
out,
it.
yeah.
10-minute epic. It's like it's like a Pink Floyd song and a James Bond theme song all wrapped in one.
I'm in. No, love it.
Nice, I love
Yeah.
it.
But sorry, that was a sidetrack.
Oh, it's all good. Kind of going back to what you were saying about, you getting into like modern hip hop, Chris. I feel this album had a perfect balance. You had your feel good tracks, you had the great production, you had your clubs hits, you had great features. I feel like it covered so many avenues. It was pretty much a perfect album.
Yeah. Again,
Yeah,
I'm gonna
I
say
agree.
it.
I
If
think-
you
I
took
think that
Drunken
is a
Hot
perfect
Girls on
album.
there off that album, I'll give you Barry Bonds. But take Drunken Hot Girls off. That's the perfect
Barry
album.
Bonds on.
Yeah, you got to have Barry Bonds on there.
No,
man.
I said
I'm
okay.
sorry.
Barry
Leave-
Bonds.
leave
It
Barry
gets
Bonds.
So heavy.
I like Mos Def as well, and I don't like that song.
No,
He's so good.
bad.
Yeah.
I don't get why it's on. It doesn't. I don't know. It just doesn't fit, and maybe that's why they put it on. But I have yet to hear someone tell me they like that song, even like the biggest Kanye fans.
Yeah, right. I'm sure someone
fair.
does.
Someone does. Why
Kanye
we're getting
probably likes
complaints?
it.
So, kind of cool with this pressing. It's one of the few actually bootleg records I own. This isn't. He didn't actually officially release this
Oh,
on vinyl.
I did not know that.
It's a 2-piece, so this is considered a deluxe edition. The deluxe one is a like a translucent pink, and the other one's just translucent white. But yeah, it's funny. Some of the sound quality on some of the songs is not that great, but I don't even care. It's still a great record to bang.
No,
that's
we're-
cool, man. Great pick.
Yeah.
Great pick.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Perfect pick.
Oh, and sorry, before we jump off my this choice, my 2 songs off this record, I'm going with "Good Morning" and crap.
If you say Barry Bonds, I'm going to be very disappointed.
It's not Barry Bonds. I love that record, but I'm the Glory. Sorry, the one I said that's a really underrated tune by Kanye, "The Glory."
And that's a great song.
Nice. I feel like we're about to take an abrupt left turn from Kanye West. Dan, I feel like this might be quite a different direction you're going to take this pod in.
Well, I mean, I gotta say, this episode we're hitting on a lot of different genres. We've got rock and roll, blues rock with Exile on Main Street. We got soul funk with Roots. We got hip hop with Graduation. And I'm the jazz guy, so I'm gonna go with the jazz record. This is the jazz record that got me into jazz music, and it's always my first recommendation when anyone ever asks me, what should I listen to if I'm ever getting into jazz. People find jazz to be a bit intimidating to listen to, or maybe it's a little bit too out there, and people associate freeform jazz as like the entire genre. But it's got to be "Time Out" by Dave Brubeck Quartet.
Love it.
This is an absolute essential, I think, in any record collector's collection. At least if you want to have any jazz records, this would have to be in your top 5
Oh, absolutely.
necessary record album. It's up there with, Giant Steps. It's up there with Kind of Blue, and it's one of my all time favorites. The story of how I ended up listening to this, and I really never listened to jazz, and I always thought of jazz as that free form, people improvising, people going crazy, right? And it just never vibed with me. But when Alina and I started dating a while back, we were at her dad's house, and her dad's got this nice set of audio gear in his living room, and Alina pops on this album while we're eating dinner, and the first song that comes on just hits you right in the face. Blue Rondo a la Turk.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I'm like, what is this? What is this music? What am I listening to? And the entire dinner, it's just me freaking out as I'm listening to this just perfect album. There's so much that happens while you're listening to this. Like every single song has just perfect melodies. the perfect moment when Paul Desmond jumps in with the saxophone. Dave Brubeck is got to be one of the best jazz piano players of all time. You know, like every time I listen to it, I find another part of the album that I fall in love with again. Like Blue Rondo a la Turk is like my favorite pump up song. If I'm looking for a pump up song, I've caught myself cranking that song in my car to absolute full blast. And as soon as you get to the part where you get the da 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 da, I'm yelling at the top of my lungs like, yeah, you know, it just gets me riled up. That song just blows my mind.
Oh, that's so good.
The other day I was listening to this album again, and obviously, you know, and I listen to this album a lot, period. I'm always playing it. And obviously I want to play it a little bit more because I knew we were doing the episode of the podcast. Now all of a sudden, my favorite song on the album is Everybody's Jumpin'. There's a moment on that song where all of a sudden everyone just sort of clicks together. This song starts with a piano, and Dave is just, he's got this sort of bebop on the piano. All of a sudden the drums kick in. Paul Desmond comes in with the saxophone, and it all builds up so perfectly that I found myself, I had to keep going back to the beginning of the track like 5 or 6 times just to hear them jump in at the same time. It's just, you know, it's just so perfect. Like, I'm talking like an absolute madman right now talking about this. That's how excited I am.
You're working up a sweat.
I love it.
I know. It's just I can't say enough good things about it. It's always my first recommendation. So many good melodies. You know, when Dave and Paul Desmond are basically writing partners, right? Like Paul Desmond wrote Take 5 on the album. It's the only writing credit he has on there. And it probably ended up being their biggest hit. But Columbia basically wanted them to do like a Gone with the Wind record. Oh. And, you know, this came out of like the West Coast jazz scene, right? So like you had East Coast with the modal, and it was the big players there were John Coltrane, Miles Davis, Bill Evans. But on the West Coast, the scene was just starting to come up, right? And Dave and Paul were basically writing partners trying to write this music. And they were coming up with all these weird time signatures that a lot of other players weren't really playing with. And that's why you have this album called Time Out, which is basically dealing with these crazy time signatures like 9/8, 6/4, 3/4, 5/4, and then going into 4/4, like just like these crazy jumps and everything. So that's why it's called Time Out. And there is a series of these records, which I have 4 of the 5, and I found 3 of them recently. So it's Time Further Out, The Miro Reflections, which comes right after Time Out, and then Countdown Time in Outer Space, and then Time Changes, and then the last one I need to find is Time In. But basically every single record deals with crazy time signatures, and is
awesome.
They're kind of similar to each other, but you know, none of them can sort of none of them can stack up against Time Out. I mean, it's the first jazz record that ever sold 1 million copies.
Wow.
And, this is one of the most important records in jazz music.
Amazing.
So it's funny you say like this is the first record that you tell people to get into jazz, like to start listening to. So for those who don't know, I'm a teacher. I teach grade 7, and finding music that kids want to listen to in the classroom is very difficult because you put on anything you like, the kids complain about it. You put on anything they like, there's a ton of swearing, and you have to deal with a bunch of that issues. So Lozia, I put this album on, and
wow.
They went wild.
Oh.
So
Really?
Yeah. So it was really interesting because I was like, I just need something that I can put on when they walk in the morning. And literally, I turned it off, and they all went, "What? We want to hear, like, wait, are you going to put that back on?" Which was,
That's
never
amazing.
happened to me before. Usually it's
I
like,
love that.
"Sir, Mr. Palumbo, can you turn that off? Like, can we put on this?" Like, not every single student who I know, like, they all listen to different types of music. And they were all into it, and I was just like, yeah, like it's it transcends time. So
It's such transcends time.
Oh, is it
That's
just
the key words.
right.
But it's such a fun record.
And
every song, Strange Meadowlark. Every time that song ends, I need to listen to that ending over and over. And when the band kicks in after Dave's opening, it's just like it's so tight and it's so perfect. Everything about it.
Yeah, for sure. I feel it. I felt it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Dan, this was an amazing recommendation from you when you first brought it up in the group. I didn't know anything about it, so I was kind of surprised that when I first started listening to it, I recognized the opening track, and it's been featured in a huge prominent movie, so some people might recognize it from Wedding Crashers in the football scene when they're tossing the ball back and forth. And
cakes in football.
Owen Wilson's trying to make all these plays with the name is escaping me right now. Rachel McAdams up and down the field.
I didn't know that. That's so awesome.
Yeah, it's a really cool. Well, it's one of my favorite scenes in the entire movie, and as soon as I heard the song, I was like, no way, that's fantastic.
Well, it's such an iconic album. Like it was put into the Library of Congress because of how significant and important.
Oh, that's amazing! I didn't know that.
Culture.
I didn't know that. That's really cool.
That's cool.
Dan, it's interesting that you say this is the album that got you into jazz, because I remember I was nervous to start exploring jazz because it's quite daunting to know where to start, and you gave me some recommendations, and I had seen this record before in record stores. It's quite a memorable cover. And I tried to listen to it, and when I was first getting into jazz, and it was too busy for me. It was overwhelming, and so I had to take a step back. And another one of your recommendations, Miles Ahead, is what actually got me into jazz. And as I listened to most of Miles's catalog, I then was like, okay, I'm going to go back to Dave Brubeck and try it again. And I had built up my tolerance to, because listening to jazz requires concentration.
Yeah.
Because it's not linear. It's not how you're used to hearing a song. And so I sort of built up my tolerance, and then I listened to it again, and I was just like, oh, I'm in. I am all in.
Well, yeah, Miles Ahead's also a great one as a bit of a palate cleanser for people because it's a very soft, it's a very low key album, even though it's the album has I think 18 or 19 musicians on it.
Yeah.
Right. It's very orchestral, but at the same time, it's very soft. So I find that interesting to hear. I mean, it's obviously jazz is an acquired taste for a lot of people. But if you do have any bit of the bug to want to listen to it, I mean, I know a lot of people when they start listening to this, you just can't escape the melodies. And even for you, if you would have given a chance to go past Blue Rondo a la Turk, Blue Rondo a la Turk is busy and it's intense. Like I said, it's a pump up song for me.
Yeah.
That song slaps you in the face as soon as you put it on. But then it goes to Strange Meadowlark, and it's just one of the most beautiful songs on the album. And that, to me, it's if you would have listened to a Strange Meadowlark, you probably would have been into that.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Kind of Blue is the other one where I was like, okay, yeah, I can dig this.
Yeah, I mean, and kind of Blue. I mean, you're talking about supergroups. That's the supergroup. You got, Miles Davis, Bill Evans on the piano, John Coltrane on the saxophone on one record. It's just insane.
Yeah, one thing I love about this record too, it just has such a nice flow from track to track. It's amazing. You don't even realize the transitions from song to song. It's just got a beautiful flow.
And it's a concept album.
Which is also interesting.
Essentially, it's a concept album.
We like concept albums.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Who doesn't?
That's
yeah.
awesome.
So for me, I mean, it's hard to pick 2 songs off of this because I actually love every single song on the album. But you know, most people will pick Take 5 as the big hit to listen to. I would say go Blue Rondo a la Turk and Strange Metal Arc. Strange Metal Arc, I think, is one of the most beautiful piano ballad and piano melodies in jazz music, and the whole band knocks it out of the park. And it's the tightest recording on the whole album. And then Blue Rondo a la Turk is just so different, and there's moments of that song that they just they completely transcend music in general. Like it's insane that they get that big of a sound out of 4 musicians.
Man,
So yeah, that's my pick.
what a great 4 albums that I just now want to listen to back to back.
Yep.
Yeah, 4 absolute bangers. Like, and
Yeah.
you know
Just
what? You know
making-
what? 4 of all of these artists' biggest records,
Hey, that's a good point, actually.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
right?
Great point.
Like,
Is it time?
it's time.
Is it?
It's gotta
for
be
Glen.
time.
It's time
It's
for
time.
Glen. Let's go.
It's time
time
for
for-
Glen.
It's time for Glen. The
So-
wheel. All right.
For
Wheel
the
of
new
Destiny.
listeners, last segment we do in this show, it's called The Hot Take. Joining Chris in his kitchen studio is Glen, the Hot Take Wheel, also known as the Agent of Chaos. So we have 5 topics on Glen. What are our topics, Chris?
We got the best song of all time, Bon Scott or Brian Johnson, popular band you can't get into, colored vinyl, and picture discs. Are they cool or is it just gimmicky? And the best riff of all time.
Most iconic.
So,
Most iconic.
most iconic riff of all time.
These are some heavy topics.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they are.
Yeah. I'm not prepared for a couple of them, so we're gonna see how this goes.
All right, let's give it a spin.
I'm gonna spin. Lozier, you need to write a Glen theme song so we
Yeah.
can play it while it's spinning.
Oh, it's
All right,
actually
here
got
we
a good
go.
spin going.
Okay, yeah. So 2-0. Just for Tom, we got Bon Scott or Brian Johnson.
Okay.
I'm not ready.
Man, are you not ready?
I don't know if I should lead this off or anchor it. I feel like
don't-
I should anchor it.
You have to anchor it.
I think you should anchor it.
Yeah.
Who feels strongly about this topic?
See,
I'll go first. I'll keep mine short and sweet.
Go for it.
Bon Scott for me. Their live album, kind of the one that you recommended to me, Tom. It really solidified that for me. It's my favorite live album by them. His come up in the band too, just kind of filling in when their original lead singer didn't want to, take the stage, and he hopped in and filled in, and he became the prominent lead singer right after it. I love that. That's it. I'm done.
Yeah. Nice. Chris, you've seen AC/DC live. You've seen Brian
Yeah.
Johnson AC/DC. What do you
so
think?
I have to go with Brian Johnson because that's the AC/DC I know. So when I was introduced to AC/DC, it was Brian Johnson. He was up on stage. I know the music videos. I know his voice. That's how I know the band. And then once I kind of knew them, I went back and listened to everything else, which I'm not gonna lie, I didn't know for many, many years of my musical journey that they were different kind of singers or different people.
Yeah.
And that was just, I guess, my own ignorance in that sense. But I always assumed Brian Johnson did most of the singing and Bon Scott was there for maybe the first album until very, very recently when we had that discussion about how many albums came out before Back in Black, pretty much.
Yeah.
And I was mind blown. And I was I have the total wrong idea of this band, but I can't change my perception of that. And when I saw him live, the guy's a maniac.
Yeah.
He's a frontman through and through, and I would never. You can't take that away from him. He stepped up. He took control of a band that was and they exploded. So like you can't take that away from them.
Really, really good point. And I totally understand like your experience of AC/DC is Brian Johnson.
Yeah.
I just want to make one more point too. Some of my favorite ACD songs are with Bon Scott as well.
Dan, what's your
Brian
hot
Johnson
take?
does sing them so well. He sings them just as well.
I'm gonna lean with Chris on this one.
Yes.
Brian Johnson. Now, why am I picking Brian Johnson? I'm picking Brian Johnson because he did their biggest album, Back in Black.
Fair point. Fair point.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm going to pick him because he did my favorite album by them, which is For Those About to Rock. We Salute You.
Great album.
And I think I'm going to pick him too because I think he had the best look.
Yeah.
You know, the flat brim cap.
The cab driver cap.
The curly hair, the tank tops with the big beer gut. Man,
Yeah,
the guy just oozes
Frontman.
sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I mean,
Yeah.
I think, like Chris said, he has really good frontman qualities on stage.
Yeah.
I understand that Bon Scott was kind of the guy and wrote some of their most iconic albums, even though Back in Black's their biggest. I know they had 3 or 4 really, really strong albums before that. But you have to give him credit for being able to jump in halfway at the peak of one of the biggest bands in Australia, to take that and then to bring it over and to get crazy mainstream success in the US. Like 50 million records sold. Like, give me a break. You know, after your lead singer dies and you have some new guy coming in at the helm and basically replicating the sound and making it as seamless of a transition as you could possibly ask for.
Incredible.
For what happens to be one of the most unique singing voices out there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
So I gotta give Brian Johnson credit on all of those. On all those, I think I'm gonna like him better. And really, what it comes down to, it's that he's on my favorite records by them. So why how could I pick Bon over Brian?
I'm in agreement, Lozier.
No, I like it.
Now here's the thing. You know, it's 2-1. The Aussie definitely has 2 votes on this.
Perfect. Bring it home. So I want to pick up on something you said there about I don't think, like, you can say it out loud, but I don't think anyone can appreciate how incredibly difficult it would have been for the band to lost their friend and singer and frontman in Bon Scott after they just released Highway to Hell, their most successful album to date, and the album that broke them into the US market. Mm-hmm. To then put out a new album with a new singer, for it, as you said, for it to be as seamless as it was, and for them to go to that next level of success, it's pretty incredible that happened. And I get that. And yes, Back in Black is their most popular, most successful album. I get that, and I've only seen Brian Johnson AC/DC live. I didn't see Bon Scott live, obviously. So I'm picking up what you're putting down. I love Brian Johnson era AC/DC. I love Back in Black. I love For Those About to Rock. Thunderstruck is one of their most popular ever songs, not as successful an album. I actually really loved Black Ice.
Really?
I thought that was a return to form. But for me, it has to be Bon Scott. So I'm sorry, gents. I'm going to have to add my 2 votes to Bon and make it 3-1. You
3-2, but
sorry, 3-2.
split decision.
You guys get half a vote each.
Okay.
No. So
3.
yeah, look, for everything that's been said, he created the blueprint for how their songs should be sung and for how their lyrics should be written. He was sleazy. He was cheeky. There was a lot of wit in his lyrics. He created this real down and dirty hard rock edge to their lyrics and their vocals. And it was that and his persona plus Angus's lead and Malcolm's rhythm that defined AC/DC as a sound. And so I think he laid the foundation for Brian's success. And that's taking nothing away from Brian and the fact that he was able to come in and slip so seamlessly into what was a pretty big band at the time and then release Back in Black, and for fans to say, yeah, he's taken the mantle and, he's picked up where Bon left off. So taking absolutely nothing away from Brian, and I love a lot of their records with Brian, but you've also, while Back in Black was their absolute biggest album, under Bon, we've talked about before, TNT, High Voltage, Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap, Let There Be Rock, Power Age, If You Want Blood, the live album, and Highway to Hell. And Highway to Hell or Power Age would be my favourite AC/DC albums. So for that reason, for me, it's Bon Scott. And Matt, I'm glad you brought up If You Want Blood, because man, oh man, what a live album.
It's one of my favorites. It's funny because I hadn't listened to it up until the point you made a point of saying, hey, you got to check this out. And it is fantastic. It's so good.
I'm really glad
it's really sad Bon Scott went out the way he did.
Yeah.
I think you put it in a really nice way a few episodes back. He burned bright. You know what I mean? I think you said that about Jimmy Page.
Yeah. Jimi Hendrix.
And what? Oh, sorry, not Jimmy Page. Jimi Hendrix.
Jimmy Page is still with us.
Yeah, sorry, that's my bad. I apologize. And you made a good point. Like for, Brian Johnson to jump in the way he did. A lot of bands have a really tough time once the lead singer goes down. That's kind of it. There's not too many bands that come back from that.
Look at Zeppelin, right? Bonham.
Yeah.
When Bonham died, they just went, that's it, they're done.
Yeah. That was it.
Has another band done that?
Queen
did it, yeah.
Did they?
Not.
In their own roundabout way, they did it.
Yeah, but we're talking like...
Yeah, but they're touring. They're touring with a new singer. They're not really like coming out with big albums. Yeah, Van Halen did it.
They switched. Switched singers.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. But I can't...
And they were another one. They were really successful with it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Iron Maiden switched singers after their first album. Sabbath. Obviously no one died, but Sabbath went with Ronnie James Dio, and they released 2 fantastic albums with Ronnie.
It's not an easy thing to do, and I think I think he does such a good job of playing the olds. Like when I saw him live, they didn't just play the new things; they were playing everything, right? And he does such a good job of filling in. And the more I look at this list, like, okay, pretty much I don't listen to any AC/DC after for those about to rock. I don't listen like those albums.
No,
anything after that, I don't know a lot of.
Yeah.
Right, but I know the ones underneath. So yeah, your point's very compelling, and I understand why you pick it. But when I picture AC/DC, I don't picture Bon Scott anymore. Right. I picture, like Lozier painted the perfect picture, right? I picture him as Brian Johnson as the front man.
Black tank top.
Yeah, right? And like that side, I don't know, like there's that famous picture, the side profile of him. That's what I picture, and the sweat pouring off of him.
But yeah, Tom, you made a really compelling point there, man.
You did,
and,
I liked it.
I think the key to the hot take is Bon Scott's writing and how many big hits came from their early albums. Because after Let There Be Rock, the rest of AC/DC's albums were not very strong.
No.
And it was likely due to the fact that they did not have Bon Scott writing those lyrics for them anymore.
Thunderstruck's a bit of an exception to that. That's on the razor's edge.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, you're right. Like, and For Those About to Rock is a really strong album.
Love
The
that.
Razor's Edge though has Thunderstruck, Are You Ready, and Money Talks. Like that's a pretty solid AC/DC lineup. And Thunderstruck is amazing because of the guitar riff, not because of the lyrics.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, don't get me wrong, the thunder and it working together, but it's that do 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 do.
It's the tapping.
Yeah, which
Yeah,
is, and it
that's the
goes so
tapping
well
riff.
together, right? So yeah, they do. He does have his moments of brilliance.
Whereas
which
if you-
also is tough because that came out in 1990, which this type of kind of glam pub hardcore rock was on the way out. Right?
Yeah, grunge
that's
was in.
that's a big hit in the 1990 when we see like grunge taking the scene. So yeah, that's you can't complain about that. It went 5 times platinum.
But if you talk about post Bond, you're talking Back in Black, enormous. For Those
Yep.
About to Rock, fantastic.
Yep.
Then Flick of the Switch, which has maybe 2 good tracks, including the title track.
See, I
Fly
don't know
on the
that one at
Wall,
all.
which fell totally flat. Who Made Who?
Fire.
Who Made Who is a soundtrack to a Stephen King movie, and it's like a few original tracks and then a bunch of old tracks. Blow Up Your Video, Razor's Edge, Ball Breaker, Stiff Upper Lip, Black Ice, Rock or Bust, Power Up. I would say you have 1 to 2 good albums of a collection of tracks from post For Those About to Rock.
Yep.
Yeah,
I
agreed.
agree.
So that's
like
why
Stiff Upper Lip was not great.
Yeah. So I get why, there's an entire generation of people for who AC/DC is Brian Johnson, because that's who's been there, and, that's who I've seen live. But I just think they're a better band with Bon Scott.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay,
Interesting.
Ozzy gets 2 votes.
Yep, there you go. That is
I
it.
win.
That's it. Man, I'm just going through the list
We
here.
all win.
We all win. Do you guys have a favorite album art, AC/DC album art? I'm just looking at them all right now.
Back in
And
Black
one-
is the best. It's just black.
Is it?
album.
It's, man, Highway to Hell
Highway to Hell's really good.
I like Highway to Hell, to be honest.
Highway to Hell.
with
100%.
with the horns, and he's
double
given that.
And the tail.
So iconic.
Oh.
So
If You Want
Yeah.
Blood is really good too, right? Like he's
Yeah, that's
getting
true.
stabbed in the guts with an Epiphone.
I haven't. Where is it? I can't find it on here. But yeah, man, they had some cheesy album art and some bangers. Like Let There Be Rock is not a great one.
No.
It's got Angus
there's
Young.
2 covers. There's 2 covers
Is
for
there?
that.
Sorry, this one is Angus Young is holding his guitar up, and there's like clouds, and it looks like
Oh yeah.
it's like got the Jesus mosaic.
Yeah. And the
Yeah.
other one's not great either. The original one is just like a guitar and fingers.
Oh, okay.
Oh, the original Highway to Hell is pretty sweet.
With them on fire.
When they're on fire and you're looking down a fretboard.
Oh yeah.
It's interesting. I think maybe their Australian releases and their US releases often differ. Like Dirty Deeds is another example of that, right? There's the Hypnosis cover, which is the sort of gathering of people with their eyes blacked out in front of the dodgy motel. That's the US release. And then the Australian release is the one I have, which is, Bon with the big tattoo on his forearm with Angus. They're in a pub. It's like a cartoon.
Yeah, that's I kind of
Yeah,
like
there's
it.
alternative art covers. Yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting.
it's cool. I like that. Man,
What a fun
that's what I love
band.
about records. I like Power Outage too. Angus there with the
Power Age.
the cables. Power
Yeah.
Age, sorry. Power
Yeah.
Age.
That's
But,
probably my favourite album.
Yeah.
It's
yeah,
really
it's-
dark. I think Bon was having a tough time.
Sin City. Yeah. Kick in the Teeth. Yeah. Like, oh, what
Down
a band.
Payment Blues. There's just some,
Yeah.
really
Give Me a
strong
Bullet.
Angus licks in that album.
There. Yeah. Good stuff. All right, so Tom, summarize it. Who won? Who's victorious here?
Bon Scott.
I think Bon Scott, yeah.
Bon Scott it is.
Let There Be Rock. Do you know what I like too, though? They've both got like a rock anthem. Brian, For Those About to Rock, we salute you. And then Bon's Let There Be Rock. They've both got like a rock anthem in their discographies.
Yeah,
Which is
but
great.
that's AC/DC.
Yeah.
That's the band.
They do one thing and they do it really well.
Yes, they do. Yes,
Right on.
they do.
Are we wrapped?
Perfect. I think
That's
so.
it. That's the
Holy
episode.
moly. Thank you everyone for listening. That was a really epic episode. Some really fantastic choices from everyone. Talking Saturday night spins. Epic hot take. I feel like it wasn't quite as heated as the last one, but I was really happy to get that Bon Scott, Brian Johnson piece off my chest. I've been mulling it for a while, so I was glad we were able to talk about that. Be sure to jump on whatever platform you're listening to. Hit that subscribe button so you can hear us again. We'll be out again next month with another episode. If you want to get in touch, drop us a line, give us a follow on Instagram at Crate Expectations Pod. Until next time, keep digging and spinning.
John, it's first team all state. I can put the ball wherever I want to. I'll make it rain out here.
All right, guys, bring it in. Blue 17! Blue 17! Red 7!
Oh, you're gonna cover me.
Like white on rice.
All right, I like my odds here. I'm gonna give you a little warning. I'm going downtown.
Hot route! Red 7, red 7, red 7!
Look for me in the end zone after this play. I'll be the guy holding the ball.
John!
What?
Red 7!
I don't know what red 7 means.
Hot route!
I don't. What is hot route?
Will you just go stand on the other side, please?